Hi everyone, we're here at the Lean in Pakistan headquarters at the Barak Center, where for Lean in Pakistan Foundation story number 10, we have the incredible Moneeza Butt. Moneeza Butt has been a part of Lean in Pakistan from the inception, even when we had our first event at the British Deputy High Commission, to representing us in Malaysia as a speaker. And so we're really, really proud of her role on this journey. And she, of course, to those of you who may not know, is the first female partner of any audit big four firm in Pakistan's history. She's audit partner at KPMG. But I will let you introduce yourself, Moneeza. So should we begin?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much,
Moneeza,
Tara. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm really pleased to be here. And I think this is a fantastic series that you've started. I've watched a couple of them. And I think this is such a great initiative that you've started.
okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. And of course, you are chair of the Auditors Circle here in Pakistan. And so you are going to be coming on board to interview some other women in audit. So keep note that you'll soon be on my side of the screen.
I don't mind that. I look forward to it.
Fantastic. So first, let's begin with you. If you can describe a little bit about what you do now and who you are in your own words.
Okay, so I'm a chartered accountant and I'm a partner in KPMG. It's a global audit and accountancy firm, and it's one of the big four worldwide, which has its presence in Pakistan over here. I'm an audit partner essentially, and I've been a partner since 2008. Qualified in the year 2000, and I became a partner in 2008. And since then, it's just like one day at a time that I take it as.
Fantastic. And of course, you're being incredibly modest, but as the first female partner in Pakistan's history of a big four audit firm, that was a journey in itself. And there's many layers to that journey. One, your educational path, your career, strategic path, also your personal life. I mean, you're a mother of two kids, and we'll get to that a little later, but and with a happy marriage and balancing the work-life balance. So as we unfold this, if you could begin with describing Moneeza as a little girl. Did you grow up in Karachi?
Yes, I did. I'm a thoroughbred Karachiite, I would say. And, I come from a family of doctors, and I feel, from my journey, there are quite a few lessons that one can learn. And when I am, speaking at other forums and recounting my story, so I always quote them. And the first one would be like, you should not let failures affect you because, as I said, I come from a family of doctors, and it was an unsaid rule in our family that I will also take up the medicine profession, but I always had that rebellious streak in me and I wanted to do something different. So I ventured into the field of chartered accountancy. But that was only by a stroke of luck because what I really wanted to do was go to IBA because in the 1990s, Dr. Wahab was there and it was one of the most, I would say, the most coveted institutions of the country. And they had this, the test and the interview was something of an intrigue for everybody. So that was what I had aimed for. And unfortunately, when I could not get through that, that was a time when when I was just completely shaken by the failure. But I guess, like if you think ahead and you remain positive, the Almighty does open a lot of other doors for you. And that is how I opted for chartered accountancy. I saw the ad of an aptitude test in the newspaper, and I just went and sat for the test, and I cleared it. And then the rest is all history. But actually, when I did, so one of the, we were talking about the lessons that one can learn is that you should not let failure affect you. So I believe if I had not failed and stumbled at that point in my life, I would not be where I am today because it just made me stronger and, more resilient, I would say. And then when I opted for chartered accountancy, as you know, it's an extremely male dominated profession. And when I came to KPMG, I was, I think, one of the third girls in the office. So from struggling for little amenities in life, like a separate washroom for females, to like, you can imagine how real the struggle would be to like, sticking out like a sore thumb in like corporate boardrooms, being the only female over there. So life has, been, I would say it's come full circle now because, when I see young girls now opting for a profession, I feel so delighted because when I started off, there were like a very few number of females, very few and far between, and there were no partners as such. And there was a point in my career, I would say, when I was expecting my first child, that I thought I would just quit and I could not continue and balance, my personal and professional life. And I remember I had my resignation in hand, and I had gone to submit that to my leadership when they offered me partnership. I was at such crossroads at that time, Tara. I really did not know what to do, because here I would be creating history, like being the first female partner in the big four firms over here. So we have smaller firms, in which the father is a partner and then the daughter automatically like comes into the partnership. But to have a partnership in a firm which is one of the big four worldwide was quite a feat, I would say. And I was at crossroads at that time, because I didn't know what to do. And I remember discussing it with my husband. And over here, I would really like to quote something from Lean In, the book that the Sheryl
Cheryl
Sandberg wrote.
Sandberg.
Yes, yes, which had really, resounded with me, I would say. She said one of the most important career decisions is who you marry, because that really, really, I think also helps you to navigate your career path. Because I remember discussing this with my husband, that I've been offered partnership, and I wanted to resign, and he was extremely supportive in my career decision. So I would say I'm alhamdulillah blessed to have a supportive partner like that. And it was then that I thought that I would not resign, and I would just try to jump into whatever I was going into. And I feel that that one major decision has had such a far reaching impact, not only on my career, but also on a multitude of other girls. Because I have females coming up to me from my profession saying how they see me as a role model. Now I did not have any other female in that role, and that is why it was very difficult for myself to perceive, to be in that role. And now I feel, when these little girls, these girls who have opted for chartered accountancy, when they tell me that I'm a role model for them, and how they see me and they feel that they can also accomplish the same. So I feel like very, very happy that I took that decision, and now I am like, somewhat like of an inspiration for other people to also like come forward and break the glass ceiling. So these are the few, like I would say, like lessons that people can learn from my journey.
Now, wonderful, and they're deeply, deeply important lessons at that. When you spoke about choosing between resignation and partnership, and you were pregnant with your first child, it's not just success or failure at that moment, or withdrawal. It's actually, can you manage? Can you handle it? There's self-doubt, there's um, excitement, all going through the same at the same time. Can you talk about that, which is clearly a lean in moment in your life, and probably
Yes,
a
absolutely.
defining one? So
Yes,
can you
yes.
dig deeper into that moment and
Yes,
what
absolutely. So,
emotions?
Tara, yes, I feel, a lot of women, they lack the self belief and the self confidence in themselves. And I was also guilty on that account, I would say, at that time. So, we should not feel that we are any less than any other male counterpart. Because at that point in time, I delayed my
Yes,
partnership by
Mohammed.
almost, I would say, 2 years, because I would, keep telling my leadership that I feel I'm not ready for it right now, whereas I had my male counterparts just vying for that post. So, I feel that women lack self belief and self confidence in themselves. They may do equally good or even better work, but they feel that it is only by a stroke of luck, or, or they're not worth it or something. That's always been the case for with women. So this is something I think we should like, not dwell on much upon, because we are as good or even better as our male counterparts. And it's basically just merit that we should focus on. So if you are good at your work, and you have self belief in yourself, then the world is yours. There's nothing, I think, that you cannot accomplish. So that as you said, my not believing enough in myself was literally one of the factors that was pulling me down. And when I burnt all my boats, once I take a decision, I just have to like go about it. Then then I have no second alternate lined up for me. That's how I have been in life. So when I took the decision, I just burnt all my boats of like quitting, and I saw that this is my situation, and I have to come up with a solution of how to manage a family and my career at the same time. So not everybody will have the same life story. So they will have to like bank in on what resources are available to them. So I leaned in on a lot of family support, on a lot of support from my caregivers for my children. So this is how I try to navigate my path. Each woman would have to, like, see how she will go about it, but quitting should not be an option for her. That should not be, like, one of the alternates that they should have on the side. So self belief is really very important. When you have the self belief and the self confidence in yourself and your abilities, then success is naturally, it just follows through.
Fantastic. And you also mentioned that there's Cheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, and what a meaningful read that was for you, of course, and of course for me and many, many others. But recently on our page, she reposted, on the Lean In page, it was reposted that famous picture of a whole bunch of men asking what would be the value of the one woman being interviewed in that corporate boardroom or on the table. And you talked about how in your life, you've often been the only woman on the table. Obviously, in my life, that is a very common thing as well. Can you share your opinion on why being the first female partner, and now others coming up, what it adds to KPMG and to a corporate environment and to a board environment and the corporate roundtables?
Yes, so Tara, men and women are, I would say, very different, in their emotions, how they react, how they behave, their creativity and all. So to have that diversity is, like, extremely appreciated, because, the men have a certain outlook on a certain thing, and women would have a completely different outlook on that. So now, just to, like, discuss whether we should have women on boards or not, I think that is a matter of the past. Now they're talking not about just one woman; they're talking about more than one women on the board.
Exactly.
So
And the
that, yeah,
lobbying
yeah.
too.
So so that there is also a comfort level amongst that one woman who's like a soul warrior over there. But women make up like 50% of the world's population. So not to include them in, like, the economics of the world, the country, and in business matters and all. That is something that, I think the debate is very, like, it's long gone now. Now we just need to see how we can, like, create a level playing field for men and women, because their characteristics are extremely different, and how we can involve women, because women, the sort of, like, out of the box solutions, the creativity, the emotional intelligence, all these factors that they bring in is much different from men. So, like, I think having women in the workforce and in corporate boardrooms and all is extremely essential for the whole world, I would say, as such.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the most important things, because I've been on boards as the only female and I've been on the boards with one other female. And I found the key is that women support each other on these boards. It really makes a difference. And so women pulling each other up onto these spaces is incredible. Like you're doing with all the young audit internees and newbies starting out in their path.
So
The
I'm
other
also
thing
a
is
mentor. I would like to add over here, because when I was growing up, I would say I did not have any one mentor in my life. So I looked into, like, different personalities from our profession, from the business world, and I would just try to, like, I was inspired by their different traits and all. But there was not any one woman that I would say, oh, this is somebody that I would like to be. So, like, now, from because of that, as a part of giving back to the community that I come from, I'm a mentor for the Institute of Chartered Accountants as well, and I mentor not only the women, the girls and the women, but also young men. And I think this is a fantastic initiative of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, and mentoring worldwide also, I believe, is, like, gaining momentum. It is very important that, we have some mentors in life who can guide us, who can, like, provide, like, that form of guidance, advice to people as they navigate their careers.
No, absolutely. And it's another wonderful thing that you're doing to give back to the community. When you spoke a little earlier about the decision making process at that milestone lean in moment in your life and what an important role your husband played. And of course, you mentioned in the book Lean In that Sheryl Sandberg had written the importance of choosing a partner. Could you share some of the criteria you had or the thought process you went through when deciding who to marry and so forth?
Okay, so, I think I am, alhamdulillah, blessed to have a partner who's, like, very supportive of the fact, like, when we were getting married, he knew that I was working, because we met, in the building. Our offices was in the same building. So, like, I had told him that I have studied so much and I would like to continue with my career. So he was fine with me whether I continue with it or whether I don't continue with it. He said that is entirely your decision. He was not like, too like pressed upon me whether I work or I don't work. So, because of that attitude of his, I got a lot of support where he gave me the space basically to make my own decisions, to like, to have my own like, life apart from being a wife to him, as well as a mother, I would say, to my kids. So I would really appreciate that. I appreciate that in my spouse. And I think when girls do, like, because marriage is an essential part of life. Everybody has to get married one day. That's a cycle of life. So when they're at that stage in their life, I think they must discuss these things with their spouse to avoid any complications later on. So if you have a spouse who is understanding of your ambitions and your dreams, it would be like, very like easy for you then, I think. And it will also like boost your morale as well as your career if you have that sort of a support coming in from your family.
Wonderful. Now, when you talk about now reaching different stages in your career, and at the earliest stage, it was just learning, clearing the first exam, then joining, then eventually deciding to stay with the company, be a partner. And then within partnership, there's different responsibilities that you have. How did you acquire those new skills each step of the way?
Yes, Tara. So you see, like you do not need, like, you need to always upgrade your skills, I say. So when I joined the firm, naturally I was a trainee. So there were a different set of skills that were required. But in chartered accountancy, I think you get the financial independence so early in life that it makes you very strong as a person, also very opinionated. Also, it gives you that confidence basically in life. So and those at our time it used to be 4 years. Now they've reduced it to 3.5 years. Those 4 years of articleship, they groom you so well, and they teach you people dealing skills basically. Because we are posted to multinational clients and we're posted to very local, like, very small scale local clients. And the way we have to interact with the different people out there is like, something I think which is very valuable, which is taught in that 4 year articleship to us. So I think that this is one of the skills, I think, which my profession really like honed in me, I would say. And then as you go up the ladder, like, then you come into the role of strategic business, making strategic business decisions, business development. So that requires a different set of skills basically. And then,
Memory
networking is very
making.
important. Negotiation skills are very important. So as you go up the ladder, there are a different set of skills that you need to imbibe. And that is how I think you transform basically, also as a professional, as a personality. So when you, like, there's a couplet of Urdu, I would say, that खुदा जब हुस्न देता है तो नजाकत आ ही जाती है, which basically means when God bestows, his blessings on you, so you automatically come up to the level basically,
Yeah, and that's a
I would
very
say.
beautiful, beautiful eye. When you were talking about early in your career and how you didn't have a role model who was necessarily a female, such as yourself, to look up to, but you started to examine and study different traits and different personalities. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because let's say if you have 30 partners at the various firms, you're not going to be studying 30 personalities. There must have been a few that you singled out that you wanted to learn from, emulate, wanted to study a bit more. Can you talk about that process of deciding which traits, how you selected the people? Did you formally mention to them that you're studying them, or was this done quietly as an observer yourself? Can you share your process?
Okay, so first of all, starting from the firm that I was working in, so the senior leadership over there, and the way they used to deal with our clients, that was something that always like inspired me a lot. Because sometimes you can imagine how clients can get difficult because they want you to go with a certain view and you do not agree with that view, and that view is not according to, like, the standards and the law and all. So how my senior leadership, my senior partners, I would say Masood Naqvi, Hussain Basrai, how they used to handle the clients at that time. That was something that was always, inspiring for me, and that I learned a lot from them. How to deal with people, difficult situations, how to, like, manage difficult people, manage difficult situations, how to remain your composure, how to remain calm in the face of adversity. And then also one of the things I remember my senior partner used to always tell me that it is very easy for people to identify problems. There's no rocket science in that. When we used to take out issues, we used to feel, oh, we're so good at our work. We've taken out these issues, and now we'll see what the client or what they have to say. And my senior partner used to always tell me there's no rocket science involved in taking out issues or problems in a certain set of accounts. He said what really tests your ability is to provide solutions, basically. So that really struck with me, and I really I would say learned from a lot from them, because when they said, you have to bring up solutions. You've told us the problem, but that's fine. Now tell us the different solutions that they can adopt to get through, and achieve a middle ground. So that is something, which I thought that my senior leadership really groomed and trained me, and which helped me a lot in my career, afterwards, and now also. And apart from that, I think, there were different personalities that I came across, in different boardrooms. I remember meeting Irtiza Hussain, and his personality. He's the author of The Corporate Law, and his personality, his magnetic personality, I would say, was something that I used to really admire. At the way he used to I would say enforce his views and get his way through. So that is something. Then a lot of other people that I met in corporate boardrooms, that I met along my career, mostly men, because I told you there were very few women. So they were. I always used to study how they have behaved, how they have responded to what has been put across, how they are managing when they are also placed in a position which is a difficult situation. So all these people, I would say I would just study their traits and then try to imbibe them in myself too.
And you, Moneeza, also are quite known in the community, not just for your work with KPMG and an audit, but also you are part of the community. You meet with various people, you are very social, and you contribute and are part of different initiatives, not just in the audit field, but just generally. How do you manage time? Your time management skills have to be probably par excellence, better than anyone's.
Yeah, so that is something which mostly everybody asks me. So I would say, what, when you talk about being social, so I am basically a people's person. It also depends upon the type of personality that you are. So I am a people's person. I love to meet different kinds of people, and I would say, friends and acquaintances who, from varying parts of life, I would say. But when I meet people, but at the same, that is, I feel how I relax, basically. Because if you ask me about any TV shows or anything on TV, I don't like watching TV at all. So the time that I get to relax, or that I get for myself, I like to meet people, to go out, to socialize. But at the same time, you have to maintain your professional life also. So I have seen women, when they get married and they are also working, so they always put their work behind, and they feel, no, our family is very important. No doubt your family is important, so, but your work is also equally important. So I have two kids, two boys, but I believe I don't have just two boys. The third child that I have is my work. So I have to also treat it equally with as much importance. It's just a juggling act that you need to do. You know how you see a juggler in the circus? So you just need to juggle one thing with another. Sometimes you will have your family which needs you more at a certain point of time. Sometimes your work will need you more. So you just need to perform a balancing act, basically. And I think networking is something which is very important, which women lack nowadays. They're so involved and engrossed in doing their routine work, or whatever their job description is, that they do not network. So I also always quote this quote, basically, which is, your network is your net worth. So we must realize that it's very important to meet people, to have that kind of a circle, basically, where people know you, you know people, because when you're doing something, I think it's easier to get the job done when you know people, different people and all. So that's how
Well,
I would say I manage.
absolutely. And you spoken earlier also about, the lean in platform, the lean in book, the lean in community. Can you speak a little bit about some of the strength you've gotten from your circle and from the members of the Lean in Pakistan community?
Oh yes. So first of all, I'd like to thank you again. Because I remember Malaysia, and I represented Pakistan over there in the Lenin movement, and there was such, I would say, dynamic females that I came across. And what wonderful work they are doing, and how it started to where it has come. It's amazing. Because when women are working, basically, so their set of problems and the set of issues that they have are very different from what their male counterparts are experiencing. So I think to have a group of women who can just sit down and discuss it would like not only provide different forms of solutions to the problems that are being faced by one woman or one partner, and are like willing to be there for each other in troubled times, I would say. So Lenin, I think, has accomplished that to a great deal, where women can come out and form a sort of support circle for themselves.
Okay, wonderful. And what has been sort of one of the most interesting experiences you've had in your corporate career?
Oh, so I would not say there's been any one interesting experience, but generally what I encountered was like, when I became a partner, I was very young basically, and I was a female. So I used to have these clients who were, not ready to accept a female in that role. So I remember, I used to have my juniors who were like, how men are taller than women. So they were taller than me. They used to have big beards, and they used to be like, they used to appear as if they are in my position and I'm junior to them. So I remember the client never used to take me seriously, and if they had any issues or any things to discuss, they would not discuss it with me, they would discuss it with my juniors. So I remember I was quite in a dilemma how to deal with this situation. So what I did was I used to like let them talk with my juniors till whatever point they would. And then at a certain point, because I was the person who has to sign the report, who has to initial the account, who has to basically get the work in the final stage. So when it used to come to that, then I used to tell my juniors, okay, now you have to tell them, now it is not in our control anymore. You will need to tell, or speak to Madam or Moneeza to get this across. And then I remember when they used to call me, at first they used to be very apprehensive. I could see the animosity, or I would say where they would want to have a distance, and not like have too much to do with me and all. But then how when I believe when you talk sense, and when you are offering very viable solutions to the client, to their issues, is when they start taking you seriously. Because when you talk sense, then I believe your gender does not matter to anybody. They're just interested in getting the work done and having a problem or an issue at hand solved. So this is something I think which was like one of the things that I thought like was very interesting. And when I used to see the attitudes changing from being very from an animosity point of view, to becoming like so like comfortable with me, that they would then ask my senior leadership that they want me to continue in the role as serving them as the engagement partner. So this is something that I thought was very interesting, to see a
It's
change in
not just
attitudes of people.
interesting, it's very inspiring because it shows that if you are giving solid professional solutions, advice, and doing your job thoroughly, you'll get the respect. And that
Yes,
respect is
very true.
what got you repeat requests to be the one that they turn to because they no longer saw you solely as a female, they
Yes,
saw you as their auditor and someone they
so
could
true.
have a professional conversation with who they respected and who would give them their professional, I mean, ensure their professional needs are met.
Yes, yes, so true.
So,
Yeah.
so that's one, not only about your skills, but about your people skills. And you mentioned earlier you were a people person, but you also have strong EQ, emotional quotient, to be able to be in a position to manage those awkward situations. You and I have discussed many times what it's like to be in a bit of an awkward situation with people who are not really seeing you as as someone who is in that leadership role. And so, being a female and being in Pakistan, and especially with the religious elements to that, and even looking you in the eye in a business conversation. These are things that suddenly disappear when the solutions and the conversation is so professional that they are looking at you as the professional.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it's absolutely wonderful to have spoken with you today, and I cannot tell you enough how you're one of the prides of the Lean in Pakistan community here in Pakistan. And thank you for being chair of the Auditors.
Thank you, Tara. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. As I told you, I really like to give back to the community, the community of chartered accountants, the community of females, who are trying to make a mark in their careers. And it's wonderful to be part of your initiative. And best wishes to you in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Moneeza, for being a part of this.